Before the discovery of Utahraptor, paleontologists believed that sickle-clawed dromaeosaurs, or small, lightly built carnivores confined to the late Cretaceous. Agile, intelligent, and dangerous, yes, but never dominant. That understanding would change dramatically with fossil discoveries from the early Cretaceous of what is now Utah. Dated to roughly 125 to 130 million years ago, Utahraptor forced a fundamental reevaluation of the raptor lineage. Utahraptor was massive, stretching over 20 feet in length and weighing close to 1,100 pounds. This was no turkey-sized hunter. It proved that some members of this feather family grew large enough to function as apex predators within their ecosystems, while still retaining their hallmarks of dromaeosaurid biology, including enlarged sickle claws, grasping forelimbs, and close evolutionary ties to modern birds. Despite its size, Utahraptor sits firmly on the same branch of the dinosaur family tree as today's birds. It can be difficult to reconcile such a powerful muscular predator with avian ancestry, but Utahraptor demonstrates just how diverse and formidable that lineage once was. Fossil evidence suggests it primarily preyed on smaller dinosaurs, but its physical strength and potential for coordinated group behavior indicate it may have been capable of taking down much larger animals, including young or weakened theropods that shared its environment. When Jurassic Park first opened its gates, guests were introduced to velociraptors far larger than anything documented in the fossil record at the time. This was not a mistake, nor a misunderstanding of paleontology. It was a deliberate design decision. Early engine cloning programs prioritized visual impact and guest perception, favoring larger, more imposing animals that conveyed the power and danger of prehistoric life at a glance. Fragmentary fossil evidence left room for interpretation, and InGen's genetic engineers selectively enhanced size-related traits during Reconstruction, producing first-generation velociraptors that far exceeded the dimensions of their Asian counterparts, later confirmed to be closer in size to a small dog. Ironically, science would soon catch up. The discovery and formal naming of Utahraptor validated those early instincts. Here was a real naturally occurring raptor, even larger and more formidable than the animals that once patrolled the original park. With oversized killing claws measuring nearly 9 inches long, powerful forelimbs, and a robust skull built for delivering fatal bites, Utahraptor proved that Jurassic Park's raptors were not exaggerations of nature, but early approximations of a predator's science had yet to fully uncover. Discovered in 1975 at the Dalton Wells Quarry by paleontologist Jim Jensen and formally named in 1993 by James Kirkland, Utahraptor, meaning Utah thief, stands today as one of the most significant raptors discoveries ever made. Here at Jurassic World, we have brought this animal back to life, one of the most dangerous predators ever to walk the earth, now safely contained through our modern InGen technology. The Utahraptor Pack exhibit has become one of the park's most dynamic habitats, always in motion, filled with constant communication and calculated awareness. Guests quickly learned that the velociraptors of early park history were only part of the story. Utahraptor is the answer to decades of debate, a living reminder of what raptors were truly capable of, and a powerful incentive to respect the fences. In today's feature, we'll explore the paleontological history that shaped our understanding of the species, examine its role within the Jurassic Park franchise, and reveal how our dinosaur management teams have translated ancient ecosystems into a modern exhibit designed fit for Utahraptor. Whether you're here as a future guest, a fellow paleontology enthusiast, or a park manager seeking inspiration for your next exhibit, we invite you to dive into the story of Utahraptor with us. Up next, we take a closer look at the animal itself, its size, anatomy, and defining characteristics in the description section. Utahraptor represents the upper extreme of the raptor lineage. As a member of the family Dromaeosauridae, it shares ancestry with Deinonychus, Dromaeosaurus, and Velociraptor, theropod dinosaurs whose origins stretch back to the mid-Jurassic. Utahraptor stands apart as the largest known representative of this group, reshaping our understanding of what a raptor could be both size and behavior. Measuring roughly 20 to 23 feet long and weighing close to 1,100 pounds, Utahraptor rivaled the mass of a modern polar bear. This was not a lightly built pursuit predator. Its body was thick, muscular, and powerfully grounded, with proportionally shorter, sturdier legs than its smaller relatives. Rather than relying on speed, Utahraptor was built for strength, balance, and sudden explosive movement. In life, Utahraptor would have behaved less like a wolf and more like a big cat. Evidence from its anatomy suggests it most often hunted alone, stalking patiently and relying on ambush rather than coordinated pack pursuit. Its legs were not designed for extended chases, even against relatively slow prey. Instead, those powerful limbs allowed Utahraptor to launch itself forward in short bursts, leaping onto unsuspecting animals from cover and overwhelming them before they could react. The skull of Utahraptor was long and boxy, armed with rows of sharp serrated teeth, ideal for gripping flesh. Fossil evidence shows that the front of the skull, particularly the premaxilla, was exceptionally large, more than twice the size of the same bone in Deinonychus. This robust construction indicates a predator that relied heavily on close-range biting once contact with prey was made. The defining weapon of Utahraptor was its enlarged sickle claw, mounted on the second toe of each foot and measuring nearly 9 inches long. Rather than acting as a slashing blade, this claw was likely used as a precision tool. After ambushing its prey, Utahraptor could leap onto the animal's body and employ a strategy known as raptor prey restraint. By anchoring itself with its feet and claws, the predator maintained balance while the prey struggled beneath it. Feathers played a critical role in this behavior. Though Utahraptor could not fly, rapid flapping of its feathered arms would have helped stabilize its body while standing atop a moving, resisting animal. This wing-assisted balancing act mirrors behavior seen in modern birds and would have allowed Utahraptor to remain upright and in control during an attack. Once secured, the sickle claws were used not to hack indiscriminately, but to deliver deep, targeted puncture wounds. By stabbing into areas rich in veins and arteries, Utahraptor could cause rapid blood loss, weakening its prey until it collapsed. This method was efficient, controlled, and devastating, well suited to a predator that relied on power rather than speed. The forelimbs further reinforced this approach. Although not fully known from the fossil record, the hand claws were blade-like and laterally compressed, suggesting they were used to grip and slash at close range. Combined with its jaws, feet, and claws, Utahraptor possessed a complete predatory system optimized for ambush and restraint. Utahraptor's senses supported this hunting style. Forward-facing eyes provided binocular vision comparable to modern birds of prey, allowing for precise depth perception during an attack. Its hearing was likely attuned to low-frequency sounds, helping it detect movement through dense vegetation. A long stiffened tail, reinforced with bony rods, acted as a counterbalance, stabilizing the animal as it lunged, climbed onto prey, and adjusted its weight mid-struggle. Fossil sites preserving individuals of multiple age groups suggest Utahraptor was at least gregarious, with possible post-nestling care. While true pack hunting remains debated, these finds indicate social tolerance and complex behavior. With an intelligence possibly comparable to that of a small dog, Utahraptor was capable of evaluating its environment and making calculated decisions during a hunt. Altogether, Utahraptor was not a sprinter, nor a reckless attacker. It was a calculated ambush predator, a raptor scaled up without losing the precision and control that define its lineage. Up next, we'll step back into the fossil record to explore how this remarkable animal was discovered and pieced together in the paleontological history section. Much like its smaller relative Deinonychus, the story of Utahraptor began long before the animal had a name. The first fossils attributed to this massive raptor were excavated in 1975 from the Dalton Wells Quarry near Moab, Utah by paleontologist Jim Jensen. At the time, the fragmentary remains drew little attention, their true significance obscured by an incomplete picture of raptor evolution. That changed dramatically in October of 1991 when a nearly 9-inch long sickle claw was uncovered. This single bone immediately signals something unprecedented. The claw belonged to a dromaeosaur far larger than any known at the time, even exceeding the already imposing raptors familiar to Jurassic Park guests. Its discovery reignited scientific interest and set off a renewed excavation effort in eastern Utah. Later that same year, James Kirkland, Robert Gaston, and Donald Burge began uncovering additional remains at what would become known as the Gaston Quarry in Grand County, Utah. These fossils were preserved within the yellow cat and poison strip members of the Cedar Mountain Formation, a geologic unit dating back to the early Cretaceous. Together, these finds confirm the existence of a giant previously unrecognized raptor lineage. The formal description came in June of 1993 when Kirkland, Gaston, and Burge named the species Utahraptor ostromacey. The genus name references the state of Utah, while the species name honors both John Ostrom, whose work on Deinonychus reshaped the understanding of bird-dinosaur relationships, and Chris Mays, whose effort helped support Utahraptor research. Though often translated informally as Utah's predator, the Latin word raptor more accurately means robber or plunderer. a fitting name for an ambush hunter of this scale. The hog-type specimen consists primarily of the iconic second toe claw, along with additional elements assigned from related specimens, including parts of the tibia and premaxilla. These fossils are housed at the Prehistoric Museum of Utah State University Eastern, while Brigham Young University maintains the largest collection of Utahraptor material, including many of Jensen's original finds. Utahraptor's naming history has become paleontological lore in its own right. Early on, Kirkland considered naming the species after film director Steven Spielberg, hoping to attract funding for continued research. However, concerns over legal pressure related to the use of the word Jurassic in museum exhibits led to a last-minute change before publication. The final name, Austromacey, has remained valid despite later attempts to modify it, which were ruled incorrect under zoological naming conventions. As more fossils came to light, Utahraptor's place on the dinosaur family tree became the subject of active debate. Multiple phylogenetic studies have positioned it near the base of advanced raptor lineages, sometimes outside traditional dromaeosauridae, and closely associated with large-bodied forms like Achillobeta. Rather than being a late evolutionary outlier, Utahraptor is now widely viewed as an early experiment in raptor gigantism, reshaping how scientists interpret the evolution of the entire group. One of the more significant discoveries occurred in 2001 when a leg bone protruding from Cedar Mountain sediments led researchers to a massive sandstone block weighing several tons. This block, interpreted as an ancient quicksand or mud trap deposit, contained the remains of multiple Utahraptor individuals of different ages. The site suggests a scenario in which predators were drawn in by trapped prey and became ensnared themselves, much like the predator traps of the Cleveland Lake Quarry or California's La Brea tar pits. Excavation of the block continued for over a decade, with the slab finally removed by the mid-2010s. Due to its size and complexity, preparation of the fossils required significant funding, prompting a public crowdfunding campaign in 2016. Ongoing analysis suggests the block may contain far more Utahraptor material than originally estimated, offering rare insight into growth stages, behavior, and social tolerance within the species. Modern research has continued to refine Utahraptor's image. Studies of forelimb motion and non-avian theropods support the concept of raptor-prey restraint, reinforcing interpretations of Utahraptor as an ambush predator that pinned and subdued prey rather than chasing it down. Other work on growth rates indicate that despite its size, Utahraptor likely matured relatively quickly, an important factor in understanding how such a large raptor could persist alongside other dominant predators. Together, these discoveries transform Utahraptor from a single oversized claw into one of the most important raptors ever found, a species that forced paleontologists to rethink raptor behavior and evolutionary history from the ground up. Up next, we'll place Utahraptor back into its ancient world, exploring the environment it lived in, the animals it hunted, and the ecosystem that shaped this formidable predator in the Paleontology section. During the early Cretaceous, Utahraptor occupied a world in transition. North America's predator hierarchy was in flux. Large carnivores related to Allosaurus were fading from dominance, while Tyrannosaurus had yet to grow into the colossal apex predators they would later become. This ecological gap allowed Utahraptor to rise to the top, likely functioning as the largest and most influential carnivore in its environment. Utahraptor lived within the lower portion of the Cedar Mountain Formation, specifically the Yellow Cat Member, in what is now eastern Utah near the modern Arches region. This landscape was far from a uniform desert. Instead, it was a complex mosaic of semi-arid floodplain prairies, riverine forests, and open woodlands. Conifers towered above dense undergrowth of ferns, hornworts, and other vascular plants, creating an environment rich in concealment ideal for ambush predators. Seasonality shaped this ecosystem. Evidence from plant remains suggests a short but intense wet season, punctuated by periods of drought. Charred spores and carbonized plant debris preserved in the sediments point to recurring wildfires during dry intervals, adding volatility to an already dynamic landscape. In some areas, waterlogged, bog-like conditions developed, creating natural traps capable of ensnaring both herbivores and the predators drawn to them. Within this environment, Utahraptor occupied a commanding ecological role. Fossil evidence suggests it could take prey as large or even larger than itself. Sauropods measuring up to roughly 66 feet long may have formed part of its diet, particularly juveniles or weakened individuals. Its robust build and ambush-based hunting strategy made it well suited to exploiting such opportunities in dense vegetation and unstable terrain. Utahraptor share this ecosystem with a diverse assemblage of animals. Medium-sized iguanodons such as Hippodraco, Pseudoarestes, and the larger Iguana colossus browsed the floodplains, while armored dinosaurs like Gastonia were among the most common herbivores in the region. Sauropods including Ceratosaurus and Moabosaurus moved through the landscape, reshaping vegetation as they fed. Smaller theropods added further complexity to the food web. Utahraptor and Enclosure occupied lower predatory niches, while Falcarius and early Therizinosaur represented an unusual shift towards herbivory among theropods. Even mammals were beginning to carve out a foothold here, while Cephalodon representing the only known mammal from the upper yellow cat member. Although Utahraptor may have been the dominant carnivore in many parts of this ecosystem, it was not always alone at the top. Fossil teeth indicate the presence of at least one large allosaurid predator within the same formation. Where these animals overlapped in time and space, their relationship may have resembled that of modern bears and wolves, competitors sharing a landscape but exploiting resources in different ways, with dominance shifting depending on conditions. It's important to remember that rock formations like the Cedar Mountain Formation represent vast spans of time. Not every species preserved within the yellow cat member lived side by side, so it may have been separated by thousands, even millions of years. What paleontologists uncover is not a single frozen moment, but a layered records of changing climates, shifting communities, and evolving ecosystems. Taken together, these fossils still paint a vivid picture of the world Utahraptor may have known, a lush, volatile, and fiercely competitive landscape that shaped one of the most formidable raptors ever to walk the earth. With the ecology of Utahraptor's world established, we now turn to its modern revival within our park, exploring how these ancient insights guided the creation and design of its exhibit. Welcome to Jurassic World Kyoto, the newest park in the Jurassic World family and home to one of our most carefully engineered predator habitats to date. The Utahraptor enclosure is not designed as an open paddock, but as a contained forest preserve, purpose-built to replicate the dense forest floodplain woodlands of the early Cretaceous Cedar Mountain ecosystem. Rather than emphasizing speed or spectacle, engineers approach this habitat through the lens of behavioral realism, building an environment centered on concealment, vertical complexity, and sudden visual reveals, all traits that mirror Utahraptor's real-world ambush strategy. The habitat itself takes the form of an octagon-shaped preserve, allowing for controlled sightlines and layered interior spaces. Thick strands of conifers and cycads provide heavy visual occlusion, while low ferns and fallen logs deliberately break up long sightlines. Compact clearings are scattered throughout the enclosure, used exclusively for feeding and enrichment rather than sustained movement. Unlike enclosures designed for pursuit predators, this environment is intentionally claustrophobic, reducing running lanes and encouraging stalking behavior over chase. At its core, the enclosure emphasizes choice and complexity. A well-designed exhibit allows animals to remove themselves from situations they find stressful, with the freedom to move between sun and shade, hot and cold, high and low, wet and dry. It is this complexity, not sheer size alone, that allows Utahraptor to express natural behaviors while maintaining a sense of security and comfort, promoting both behavioral and psychological health. Safety remains uncompromising. The enclosure combines naturalistic barriers with redundant hard systems, all designed to remain invisible to guests. A deep dry moat reinforced with angled basalt walls prevents vertical launch attempts. Recessed electrified barriers are concealed within foliage along guest-facing edges. Motion-triggered infrared tracking grids continuously map Utahraptor's position in real time, allowing ranger teams to monitor movement without disrupting behavior. Guest interaction with the enclosure is intentionally indirect. Viewing windows are limited, offering partial glimpses rather than full visibility, reinforcing the sense that Utahraptor is being observed on its own terms. A signature feature of the exhibit is the log gallery, a massive hollowed-out tree trunk that guests can step inside. From within, carved viewing windows offer intimate, immersive views into the habitat, creating the feeling of standing inside the forest itself. For Utahraptor, we crafted a habitat that balances privacy, exploration, and spectacle. Forested hideaway zones filled with live Cretaceous-inspired vegetation and elevated rock outcroppings allow individuals to retreat completely from public view. These heavily screened areas also double as private access corridors for veterinary specialists, zookeepers, and maintenance teams, ensuring animal care remains discreet and uninterrupted. Internally, Utahraptor is classified as a low-activity, high-intensity predator. As such, enrichment focuses on mental engagement rather than constant motion. Scheduled enrichment includes scent drag trails using blood and skin samples from feeder species, elevated meat suspensions that require controlled leaps and precise claw use, and rotating terrain elements such as movable logs and rock features to prevent pattern learning. Additional enrichment platforms and manipulable objects allow Utahraptor to self-direct stimulation throughout the day. Working closely with our paleobotanical teams, landscape designers populated the enclosure with authentic early Cretaceous flora. Multiple substrate types including dirt, sand, grass, and straw were layered throughout the habitat, allowing Utahraptor to dig, burrow, and construct nests as it would in the wild. Security remains paramount. Dedicated ACU response teams are stationed nearby at all times, supported by redundant backup and thermal generators to ensure uninterrupted power to all safety systems in the event of an outage. A captive environment will always impose certain limits. However, with appropriate husbandry and thoughtful design, a well-constructed exhibit can fully support both adult and juvenile dinosaurs, meeting their physiological and behavioral needs while allowing them to thrive safely. An environment that respects natural behavior ultimately creates a more stable and positive outcome for both animal and guest. As with all of our dinosaur programs, Utahraptor can also be encountered across several Jurassic World destinations, from the original Utahraptor Park to our newest expansion in the Olympic Peninsula at Jurassic World Cascadia. Guests may also discover these living relics thriving in our facilities in San Diego, Manchester, Crete, and the Jurassic World Sanctuary in the Dolomite Mountains. And with the Utahraptor exhibit complete, we now turn our attention beyond the boundaries of Jurassic World Kyoto, exploring how this formidable predator came to be represented within Jurassic Park franchise itself, and how its legacy shaped one of the most iconic predators ever brought to life. Although Utahraptor was described after the release of the original films, its influence on the Jurassic Park franchise runs deeper than many realize. During early development of the Lost World Jurassic Park, concept artists and creature designers briefly explored the idea of a larger, more dominant super raptor, intended to act as a pack leader during action sequences. The concept was ultimately abandoned, deemed too unnatural at the time, but later discoveries would suggest the idea was closer to reality than anyone expected. As designer Jody Duncan later recalled, the production team had already constructed raptors standing roughly 5.5 feet tall, and when paleontologists announced the discovery of a massive raptor skeleton in Utah, informally dubbed the Super Slasher, the proportions matched almost exactly. The creature had already been designed first, then discovered second, a coincidence that remains one of the franchise's most remarkable moments of parallel evolution between fiction and science. Utahraptor's cultural footprint expanded further in 1995 with the publication of Raptor Red, written by paleontologist Robert T. Backer. The novel followed the fictionalized life of a female Utahraptor and was praised for its emotional depth, even as later scientific discoveries rendered parts of its paleobiology outdated. Despite criticism within academic circles, the book played a major role in introducing Utahraptor to the public imagination. The dinosaur's real-world legacy continued to grow. In 2018, following a proposal by an elementary school student, Utahraptor was officially designated a Utah Study Dinosaur. That momentum led to the creation of Utahraptor State Park, approved in 2021, and opened to the public in 2025 with a visitor center showcasing a mounted Utahraptor skeleton alongside other Dalton Wells discoveries. Behind the scenes, Utahraptor nearly carried a very different name. The species was originally proposed as Utahraptor spielbergi, in honor of Steven Spielberg, before concerns over illegal tensions with Universal Studios prompted a change. The final name, Utahraptor ostromyces, instead honors John Ostrom, whose discovery of Deinonychus directly inspired the franchise's velociraptors, and Chris Mays of Dynamation, a pioneer in dinosaur animatronics. Within the franchise's expanded media, Utahraptor has appeared across numerous games, often blurring the line between Velociraptor and its larger relatives. In Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder, Utahraptor could be cloned directly from paleo-DNA. Jurassic Park the game explicitly notes in Dr. Sorkin's journal that the park's raptor most closely resembled Deinonychus or Utahraptor in size and behavior. Later titles such as Jurassic World the Game, Jurassic Park Builder, and Jurassic World Alive introduced Utahraptor as a fully feathered predator, marking the first time a dromaeosaur was depicted with extensive plumage across the franchise. Most recently, Utahraptor was added as part of the Cretaceous Predator Pack in Jurassic World Evolution 2, before becoming a standard species in Jurassic World Evolution 3, complete with juvenile variants cementing its place as the franchise's largest playable dromaeosaurid. From near mythical super raptor concepts to fully realized exhibits and digital recreations, Utahraptor represents a rare moment where cinematic instinct and paleontological discovery converge, shaping one of the most iconic predator lineages in Jurassic Park history. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next feature, where we shift from stealth to sheer scale as we explore the towering, enigmatic world of Deinonychus.